Thank you for tuning in to the latest Patriots roundtable discussion. I'm Bobby Krivitsky. He's Mike Dussault. You probably know him better as Pat's Propaganda, which is where you can, of course, find him on Twitter. We are going to get to the Patriots win over the Bills 23-3 and tell you everything you need to know about the game. But first, let me tell you how you can make some cold, hard cash. So listen up, Hoop fans. Basketball season is back. And now that your favorite hardwood heroes have returned to action, it's time for you to put your fantasy knowledge to the test to win huge cash prizes every night playing one-day fantasy basketball at DraftKings.com. At DraftKings, there are so many ways to play. Choose from public contests with huge cash prizes or private contests where you can compete against your friends. They've even got beginner and casual contests where you'll play against people of similar skill level. The best part? You get to draft a new team each day, and drafting a team is arguably the best part of fantasy. The only thing better? Winning cash doing it. Just ask Dan from St. Louis or Jeremy from Austin. They both turned a $3 entry into $1,000. Huge cash prizes and bragging rights await only at DraftKings. Use code CLNS at DraftKings.com to play free with your first deposit for your share of $10,000 in total prizes tonight. Don't wait. Use code CLNS at DraftKings.com now to choose your lineup, and you can seriously cash in tonight. That's code CLNS only at DraftKings.com. The game inside the game. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Mike, we got to start with the question that everyone is talking about, and that is, should Rob Gronkowski be suspended?
Should he? I'm the wrong person to ask. Should he? I could understand see him getting a game suspension. I mean, it was a stupid play, and I know there's been plenty of talk. This is all as you were saying before we went on the air. All we're talking about is kind of the separate minutia rather than a 10-2 Patriots team. But I think Gronk with his history, I think he when he threw Sergio Brown out of the club in 2014, he was fined $8,000, which was kind of a similar after the whistle kind of shenanigans where Gronk kind of got sick of getting hands all over him, and look, I understand Gronk's frustration, but that kind of play just can't happen, and the fact that White got a concussion on it, that makes it even worse. So honestly, if he got suspended, sit him out a game in Miami at the end of the season. I mean, we got 4 games to go. I tweeted out jokingly yesterday, I'm like, just give him 4 games so we can wrap him in bubble wrap and just open him for the playoffs. But he knows it was a dumb play. Belichick knows it was a dumb play. He probably could get suspended for a game. If it's more than that, I think it's probably a little extreme. But the NFL, who knows? Tom Brady got suspended 4 games for being generally aware of something that might have happened. So who knows?
Yeah, with the NFL, who knows what's going to happen. Ultimately, I'd be surprised if he gets the same amount of games that Michael Crabtree and Aqib Talib initially got for throwing fisticuffs in the middle of the field. But I do expect a game because one of the big differences between what happened with Sergio Brown when he threw him out the club and what he did to Tre'Davious White is that Tre'Davious White was a defenseless player. And the fact that he gave him a concussion certainly adds to it. So it was after the whistle, it was intentional, and it was to a defenseless player. So all of those factors combined to lead me to believe that Gronk will be suspended. But that doesn't mean, Mike, that something on top of keeping him in bubble wrap, at least for 1 game, positive can't come of this. And so I ask you, could Gronk's outburst cause referees to change how they officiate him? Perhaps this helps at least some of the officials realize they've gone too far in what they're allowing opponents to do to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of came to a head in 2015 when the game in Denver. That was one where it was just, he was just getting manhandled on every snap. And, as he pointed out after the game, he still had an awesome game. I mean, these last 2 weeks have just been vintage Gronk, which, I think is one thing to consider when, you say, oh, well, how much is it really affecting him? I mean, I know that he's had to fight through a lot, but if he's getting it all game, and then, I mean, the penalty on White on the interception play, I mean, that was pretty blatant. So you understand his frustrations. Unfortunately, I think Gronk is just another level of human being with his size and his strength and his speed. And unfortunately, it's kind of how I think the refs are going to continue to call him, where there's two sets of rules, and that's unfortunate. But as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, you know, he can still fight through that stuff and still have a dominant effort coming through on those big third downs yesterday. I mean, those were huge. He's really gotten back to that level that we've kind of come to expect out of him. So, you know, I just want to try to keep that level as we get into the playoffs, because, you know, that kind of Gronk is really hard to stop.
And that's why referees allow this to happen, and he gets the Shaquille O'Neal treatment, because without it, he'd be unstoppable. And so that leads me to the question, should Bill Belichick have already taken out not just Gronkowski, but Tom Brady and Dion Lewis as well? Because, you know, maybe not in his mind, but it certainly seemed like the game was well in hand at that point.
Yeah, you know, it's hard. I mean, I think the last couple of weeks, they've been weird games in that, you know, you look at the scoreboard and like, oh, wow, they only gave up 3 points. They won by almost 20 points. That's, you know, but on the field, both games, they never felt like feel good, blowout, no problem, we're cruising, everything's kicking, you know, clicking. It was never those kind of games to me. And I think, you know, those are the games where I'm like, all right, pull guys, you know, because it's just out of hand. But, you know, this one, it kind of felt competitive, even though the scoreboard didn't necessarily, you know, maybe look that way. I'm terrified for Dion Lewis, as I've said many times. Every time he touches the ball, I mean, every week is a gift that we get to see him carry the ball like he's been carrying the ball. Just another amazing week from him. You know, but I think we know by Belichick now that unless it's going great, unless it's like a 2009 Tennessee game where it's 59, you know, and everything, just every pass is complete. You know, those are the games I would pull guys, but you know, it just Belichick seems pissed. They're not firing on all cylinders. They're playing sloppy, and it's like, you know, and I feel like pulling the starters as much as it's like injury prevention, it also feels like, hey, great job, guys. You know, you had a really great game. You really turned it on. Let's give some other guys some reps in there. You know, that's the feeling when you pull guys. So that's kind of where I come from on that whole thing. So I understand him leaving those guys in there, but you know, my whole game plan was, hey, just throw Mike Gillisley in there this week against the Bills to protect Lewis and Burkhead. You know, because any fewer snaps we can give them, I appreciate. But you know, as for the other guys, I think he's going to leave them in there until there's like a feel good moment at the very end when they're going to, you know, throw Hoyer in and the rest of those guys.
And Mike, to that front, Dion Lewis has a big game. Rex Burkhead has a big game. James White, for the second week in a row, more of a factor this week than he was against Miami, but still just 5 carries, only 4 catches. Would you like to see him involved more in the offense, or have they found the right balance?
You know, it's such a fascinating story, because I think like the whole Lewis versus White thing kind of goes back to 2015 and last year. And I've always kind of said, I feel like had he not gotten hurt last year, that the Super Bowl game, that maybe should have been the game that James White had. That maybe should have been Dion Lewis's game. Like I could easily, it would have fit my own narrative a lot better last year in the Super Bowl if it had been Dion Lewis. And, you know, as we're seeing now, he just has that explosive ability that's come back that he really, you know, I don't think he totally had it last year. And so now we're back, and Dion Lewis is, you know, explosive, and Rex Burkhead, I mean, he's just shot out of a cannon out of the backfield every time he carries the ball. You know, but it's interesting too, though, that I believe White played the most snaps of any of those guys, which is interesting. I think James White has definitely been kind of reduced to a role player, but I think that role is an important one, because Brady clearly trusts him in third downs and those kind of critical situations. You know, I think that the offense is really rolling right now with Lewis and Burkhead on those early downs, and I mean, that really opens a lot of things up where you don't have to bring James White in on those 3rd and 8 as much as you might have had to if they weren't getting that early yardage on 1st and 2nd down. So again, it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have Mike Gillisley just sitting on the bench and as injury insurance. You know, you don't have to go out and get Steven Jackson, who's out of retirement, you know, should something happen here. So they've still got a bunch of running backs who can all bring something to the party. And, you know, we all want James White to be that superstar and, you know, play like he did in the Super Bowl every game. But I think the Patriots as a team are most effective when all these guys kind of have their role and they're all kind of firing on all cylinders. And that's what we're seeing the last couple of weeks with the running game.
And Mike, talking about Rex Burkhead, One area where I think he's been invaluable to this team is his ability to help, obviously not fully, but replicate some of the routes and some of the production they got from Julian Edelman. And so he's been huge with he's such a good route runner. And so when they put him in the slot and allow him to either identify the coverage for Brady or get open quickly and make a play and get the ball out of Brady's hands as fast as possible, I think that's one area where he's really helped this team.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that was the big question. How do they replace kind of those snaps? I wrote a piece last week just kind of focusing on third down targets, and I mean, it's pretty remarkable how balanced the Patriots are on third down. You look at last year or years where they had Edelman healthy, and it's like, Edelman's got like 70 targets on third down, and like the next closest guy's like 35. So they don't have that kind of imbalance this year. It's much more balanced, and I think Burkhead has been a big part of that. I think that obviously Gronkowski has been huge on third down. Amendola's been chipping in on third down, and then you have James White too. So it's been by committee. But the advantage is that there just isn't that player to key off of as much anymore, especially on third down. I mean, you can say, oh, let's take Gronk, let's take Amendola, but Brady's shown that he's pretty equally comfortable going all those guys. One kind of interesting thing I noticed this morning, kind of going back through the game, was Philip Dorsett playing more than half the snaps yesterday. Didn't have a single catch or target. So I think that there's still room to improve, and I think that shows they kind of need Chris Hogan back. We haven't really seen Dorsett make any of those plays that we've been kind of waiting for. Oh, he's getting it. We haven't seen that yet. So hopefully they can get Hogan back, and then I think they'll be so well rounded. It's going to be really fun in the playoffs.
And not just Hogan, but also we think they're going to get Malcolm Mitchell back at one point, and that size outside the numbers and in the red zone should go a long way. Interesting point there about Dorsett, and I'm fascinated to check the All-22 when it comes out, Mike, to see how well he was running his routes or how well Buffalo was covering. I thought the Bills cornerbacks even did a good job against Brandon Cooks, and that's the strength of that secondary. So it was unfortunate. It wasn't a total shock. I thought they could have more success, for example, against Miami. When the Dolphins were in cover 3, the Patriots would run either Cooks or Dorsett on a post and take away the safety in the middle of the field and open things up for the other one to come underneath on an in cut. And, I'd have to check the play, but it might be, I can't say definitively, what the same concept they ran on the play that led to Brady and Josh McDaniels going at it on the sideline when Brady was unable to connect with Brandon Cooks on a deep in cut. So it'll be curious to see just how well they were using Dorsett, how much of it was Buffalo's coverage, and how well he was running his routes. A lot to digest there. When the All-22 comes out, we'll be sure to talk about it and keep you posted. If you follow Pat's Propaganda, myself at Bobby Krivitsky, and of course at CLNS Media. Mike, on the defensive side of the ball, the Bills left a few plays on the table, especially in the first half. Eric Lee's interception, Joe Webb missing Travaris Cadet out of the Wildcat. But nonetheless, for the 8th week in a row, the Patriots held an opponent to 17 points or less, tied for the longest streak in the NFL since the Chiefs did it 9 straight games in 2013.
It's just remarkable. I mean, I tweeted yesterday. I mean, it's pretty gangster of Belichick to pull somebody off of the Bills practice squad and then beat them with that practice squad player. It's just I'm a guy who I really kind of gravitate towards the defensive side of the ball, and really that's been the case since I started blogging 10 years ago. So to see kind of the evolution of the Patriots defense over the years, and the high points with Hightower and Collins, and to see what they're doing now, though, especially in that game, they didn't have Trey Flowers. Kyle Van Noy was basically just kind of a situational player. They're leaning heavily on a guy they got off a practice squad, a rookie, Dietrich Wise, Adam Butler. I think one guy that I really want to make sure I point out is Malcolm Brown, who I thought came back and just had an excellent game in the center of the field. But I think what we're seeing is this is just a Patriots defense now that is executing the game plan, and it's not flashy. They're not, they don't have Lawrence Taylor out there running around making these huge plays. They're just all kind of playing within the system, especially up front. and they're getting those sacks. And I think that that's important because, as we talked about last week, they were getting to the quarterback early in the season. They just weren't finishing, and now they're starting to finish. But as we said last week, going into this game with Tyrod Taylor, the mobile quarterback, I thought the Bills did some good things in terms of kind of challenging some of the weaknesses that we've seen out of the Patriots defense. With the toss sweeps, some of that wildcat stuff that they threw. Really trying to challenge the communication on the Patriots defense. But I think they were up to the challenge, and it's a whole lot of that bend don't break, which it's so easy for people to get infuriated about because you see teams moving the ball on them, and that's just always how it's been. Teams move the ball on the Patriots. They always have moved the ball on the Patriots, more so than many other defenses. But it's just when it comes down to it, it's the red zone, it's turnovers, and that's where they kind of stiffen, and they just force teams to try to drive the ball long distances. And not surprisingly, not many offenses can do that consistently without making game-changing mistakes, sputtering out, getting the field goal. I mean, it's remarkable to see with the players that they're rolling out there. And we're leading with the Rob Gronkowski suspension of it all. But meanwhile, the Patriots defense is rolling right now with a bunch of random guys.
Bill Belichick will not blink. If you can consistently march the ball down the field and stay disciplined enough to put up enough points to beat Tom Brady, he'll tip his cap to you at the end of the day. What did you see? You mentioned Eric Lee, and he's someone who, after yesterday's performance, fans are very interested in. Trags talked about him after his performance against Miami, where I think he not only made a play, but you looked at someone with an impressive physique. What did you see out of him yesterday against Buffalo? And quite frankly, what I thought was an up and down game despite the production that he gave them.
Yeah, I need to take a closer look. He's one of those guys to watch on a film review, but he's such an interesting player to me. I'm a big look guy, so I like numbers and face masks, just kind of how guys put themselves together on the field. He's just fascinating. He's got kind of that robot face mask, that you usually see with running backs or quarterbacks, where it's very rare to see like a defensive end guy have one. And he's big, but I was surprised because I looked at his, I think he's about Ninkovich size, like 6'3", 260. But he looks thicker to me for some reason. But he's just such a weird kind of body moving and arms moving in all directions. But he seems effective. So I was writing a bit on him this morning in my piece that I always do on Mondays, Past Posits. He's just a really interesting guy. And I'm not quite sure what to make of him yet. I'm not quite sure to say, he's going to be the man. I do think that the Patriots have a big need for that third designated pass rusher kind of guy who can come on in the third and long situations, which, with the loss of Sheard and Long and Ninkovich last year, they really had those numbers thin. So I think that there's definitely a role for him. I don't think it's going to be an every down role. And like you said, I think that, the splash plays kind of overshadow some of the inconsistencies that he would rightly have. I mean, the guy's a practice squad player who's been in the Patriots system 1 week, but just to throw him out there and play him that much and to have the kind of, high water moments that he did have, that's got to be encouraging, but we'll see how things progress over the last, 4 weeks.
I think he gives them Akeem Ayers-like production from 2014. And a lot of the success the Patriots are having now rushing the passer, and that doesn't necessarily mean sacks. It means getting pressure, moving a quarterback off his spot, has to do with how well the secondary is playing. Yesterday, they held the Bills to an average of 2.2 yards per pass, which allows the Patriots to run more of these exotic blitzes or, for example, load the box to help contain LaShawn McCoy, who they kept in check, holding him under 100 yards rushing, also helped them to contain Tyrod Taylor. Stephon Gilmore was a big part of that, Mike. 2 passes defense, goal. He also took away Taylor's first read on the play where Tyrod threw the pick to Eric Lee.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. I mean, I think, fans are starting to see what the Patriots saw in Stephon Gilmore when they signed him to that huge and surprising deal. He's not the most physical guy, which I think kind of gives him a little bit of a bad rap. And I was kind of writing about him this morning. I said, he's very smooth. He's very quiet. He kind of plays within himself. And, when he's not playing that great, it's easy to kind of get pissed at that because it looks like he doesn't really give a shit. It's like he's kind of got that quiet, focused nature about him. Whereas, Malcolm Butler kind of wears his heart on his sleeve. And you got to love that about him, but you also hate it about him because it's like, every time he gives up a pass, it's like he's acting like it wasn't complete or, any pass interference. He's like, no way. So that stuff can get annoying too, but you got to like the energy out of Butler. And, Gilmore just kind of plays that more down the middle kind of approach to the game. And we saw it yesterday. He's just so smooth, just right there. I thought the play in the end zone that he made, the pass breakup was, one of those interesting ones, because how many times over the years have we seen, Patriots receivers with their back to the ball, the ball comes in, the guy catches it, and you see him trying to put their arm up into the middle and at the catch point and to rip the ball out, but it never seems to work. And then people get all fired up about turn around, look for the ball, but you saw Gilmore yesterday kind of execute it exactly as they kind of coach it. The guy made the catch, Gilmore's right up with the arm, rips the ball right up, and it's an incomplete. So very smooth player. And, I think obviously he's coming around at the right time. And you always need guys like that, especially, if you're going to be going up against the Antonio Browns of the world. You're going to need somebody who's smooth, who can stick with him. So it's exciting. And I know, and I have to look back at what happened with Butler yesterday. Maybe you can tell me, because I saw him come off the field and they said, was he screaming at Belichick? It was kind of like a crazy moment in my house. Moment. I'm like, what's going on with Butler? He's all fired up. I couldn't tell there, but the secondary is playing really well, and that's a big part of the defense.
Yeah, I think Butler was just going back and forth with Thompson throughout the game. I don't think that was him and any of the coaches going at it. But Mike, I don't know how you had time to write an article and get the kids out the door all before joining us for today's roundtable. But as always, I appreciate you co-hosting with me. Thank you to the viewers for tuning in right here on CLNS Media, the leading online provider of audiovisual content of the New England Patriots. Once again, I'm Bobby Krivitsky. He's Mike Dussault. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to check out Patriots Beat, which you can find on CLS Media on Twitter. That will be coming out on Wednesday, and we will be back at it along with Trags Friday morning at 9 a.m. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great week.